Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 6 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the books, WTF moments, so we will break it all down. Everybody grab your swords. We're saying goodbye to one of the biggest dirtbags on the show. His plot armor isn't going to protect him anymore. And we're not talking about the guy on my monitor behind me. He was probably the MVP of the episode. We're talking about Criston Cole himself, biggest dirtbag on the show. There will be no songs sung about him, no pressing of F to pay any respects, no respects given to him. The episode title was Faceless Man, which is a huge deep cut reference to the City Watch guard Daemon kills, who had been one of the people responsible for killing the Gold Cloaks, implying that Ormund might have hired faceless men to do the deed, like multiple faceless men, because that person tells Daemon, there are many of us, we're everywhere, we have no banners, you can't win our loyalty, and will never support Rhaenyra. So it is bad for Rhaenyra for a couple different reasons, like you don't want any faceless men, even just one of them, to be after you, and you also don't want a rebellion sparking against you amongst the realm just in general. It was basically him telling Daemon, there's nothing you can do, even if you kill me, you won't stop the larger force coming against Rhaenyra. During the intro, there was a new scene of these possible faceless men, Ormund's men, killing the Gold Cloaks, that giving way to the tapestry ripping apart, a metaphor for the realm ripping itself apart with the civil war, the Dance of the Dragons right now. And speaking of the tapestry, there have been a lot of long-running theories that maybe Helaena is the person that's weaving the tapestry week to week because it's sort of telling the story of the Dance of the Dragons, and that's basically what Helaena is doing. She's telling stories, but it's from the future. She's like telling everybody what's going to be happening down the road. So after seeing the more elaborate tapestry that she wove of Aemond in the episode, it just feels like it's more confirmation that she is the person that's weaving the tapestry week to week that we see in the intro. The episode starts with Butcher's Ball, really big event from the comics, and Criston Cole's last ride. He and his men fall into a trap set by the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves, and if it wasn't clear, they set the trap for Criston Cole, forcing him out of the open to investigate the campsite, thinking that there were a bunch of dead bodies, when there were really only a couple of dead bodies and a couple of Rivermen and Winter Wolves hiding, waiting for him to come in and investigate the bodies. So there were a couple dead rivermen, like actual dead rivermen, but they were just bodies that Oscar Tully had said that they had to take back to River Run to bury in the mud. Like we had to return them to the mud per our customs, and they just hadn't had the chance to do that yet. So there were just a couple dead bodies they had on hand that they could use for this. Criston Cole's chant, "We Light the Way," are the words of House Hightower because, of course, he's a Hightower loyalist through and through, and you love the way the Rivermen, the Winter Wolves, trick them again, like a further trap within the trap because of the way they reveal their true numbers as they all circle around them and literally trap them, like there's no way you could actually escape, and there's just a couple of them left now. Oscar Tully has a great moment here. He calls them out and goes real hard in this episode, like great Oscar Tully moment here, and probably did end up building that sept out of bones eventually. You can let me know if you think that Criston Cole's bones wound up in that sept. Probably not, like he probably didn't want to profane the sept by putting Criston Cole's bones there. Criston Cole, knowing that he's about to probably die, pulls out Alicent's favor that he extracted from her. So remember, this is actually a big deal in Season 2. She did not want to give it to him. He demanded it of her, and she gave it to him to basically get him to go away. Like, just get out of here. Fine, take whatever you want. Just get out. She had long since at that point stopped caring about him and kind of hated him at that point. When he suggests he fight two of them 2-1, this is basically how it goes down in the books, but the way they kill him is differently. In the books, they still deny him his honorable fight that he requests because he has none, but in the episode, it's Black Aly who gets him with her bow a couple times. So this is the unceremonious end of Criston Cole. No songs will be sung about him.
Fool this man!
Back at King's Landing, the castle guards eventually find Alysanne and Helaena, who had been trapped after the entrance of the secret passages had been sealed, probably because of the events of Blood and Cheese, so that assassins couldn't sneak in that way anymore. So it was probably Otto Hightower that was responsible for boarding that up. How ironic. And during the small council meeting, Daemon absolutely crashes out over all the Gold Cloaks' deaths in the fact that he wants to stab and burn every green that he can find, particularly Ormund in Tumbleton, like he's ready to burn it to the ground, which the rest of the small council isn't having at all. Like nobody is on his side. Everyone's like, just wait, we'll do it with the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves. They're almost here. But Daemon isn't hearing any of it. They sort of flip-flop in this episode where Daemon is the one crashing out in this episode and Rhaenyra is the more sensible one, at least at the beginning in this small council meeting. She also does have her own fine moments later in the episode where she starts to get a little listless and crash out herself, but not quite as bad as Daemon does in this episode. It's very rare that both of them are at the same emotional state and on the same exact page, but every once in a while they both lock in, like earlier this season when they took the Red Keep, but also you don't want a situation where they both crash out at the same time. That would be terrible. Love when Daemon throws his cup at Torrhen Manderley like, "How dare you, sir, you shut your mouth." He then starts talking some crazy talk about how Rhaenyra is justified in anything she does because of the prophecy of the prince who was promised, the Valyrian dagger, the prophecy of the Long Night. He compares it to Aegon the Conqueror burning a ton of people during the conquest. He mentions the Field of Fire, which was a famous battle where Aegon burned the Lannister army with Balerion the Black Dread, but he did burn a lot of people who did not bend the knee, which Rhaenyra also knows, like, he only burned people that did not bend the knee. Rhaenyra then compromises with his ask for justice by sending assassins after Ormund in Tumbleton. She then tries to get Alan to ask Corlys for more Valyrian men to defend the city if there's more riots with the small folk or any problems with the Green showing up or this new problem with the Faceless men, probably Ormund's assassins, other plots and schemes that he has going on in the background, generally just things in the city getting worse and worse and worse now that they don't have the gold cloaks anymore, which she hears about later in the episode. Like, all manner of bad things are getting worse in the city now that the gold cloaks are gone. She then meets with some Baratheons after she summoned Lord Boros Baratheon, pissed that he didn't come himself per the summons, but they claim that his army is in waiting in the Red Mountains down south, fighting the Vulture King with Lord Boros himself. So the title of the Vulture King is a big deep cut. It was used by multiple people across the timeline. They're all trying to rise up against the Iron Throne. The first one was when Aenys was on the Iron Throne a couple generations ago. The second one was during the reign of Jaehaerys I, and then this Vulture King that they're talking about on the show right now is the third one from the books. And Boros Baratheon is not lying, like, there is a real Vulture King, and he is fighting him down in the south. But because Rhaenyra has grown more and more paranoid about all the schemes and plots around her, she thinks that Boros Baratheon is just lying to her, but she does have the good sense to chill out a little bit in exchange for using their clothes for the assassins later in the episode. But anytime you see the Targaryens at odds with the Baratheons, all you think about is the original Game of Thrones series and Robert's Rebellion. Like, it just makes you think of Robert's Rebellion. It's all heading towards that down the road. We get another funny moment with the Dragonseeds when Ulf White watches Vermithor and Silverwing start nuzzling a little bit because they're a coiled pair when they were ridden by Jaehaerys and his queen Alysanne back in the day, and they're just continuing to be a mated pair now because dragons live so long. Ulf White seems like he doesn't appreciate it though, but does make Hugh Hammer laugh a little bit, like he kind of chuckles at it. Earlier this season, Syrax and Caraxes were doing the same thing. They're also a coiled pair. A lot of times across history, if two different dragon riders in the Targaryen family happen to also be happen to be married to each other, their dragons oftentimes will become a coiled pair together. You get married to someone, your dragon also gets married to their dragon. But they use this moment for Ulf to vent about his current situation, like he's just growing tired of watching over Tumbleton, missing out on all the fun he used to have before he became a Dragonseed, growing more and more disillusioned with the role and with Daemon in Rhaenyra. When he said he misses the hot pies, all I could think of was hot pie from Game of Thrones, like big hot pie fan here. He then causes Hugh Hammer to question his position too because their lives have not improved, seemingly, which just causes him to worry more about his wife, which I think is one of the reasons why Hugh Hammer steals into the city later in the episode. Like, otherwise, he might not have done that had he not had this conversation with Ulf White. Back in the Red Keep, Rhaenyra is then pissed with Alicent for the attempted escape. She admits that Helaena is pregnant, and Rhaenyra confirms that she will eventually have to kill the baby if it is male, which is what they were worried about to begin with. Like, you were right to be worried. She's definitely going to have to kill that baby if it comes to it. Puts the two of them under stricter confinement, which does not go well with Helaena later. And Mysaria also lies to Rhaenyra about knowing Helaena was pregnant because now she's playing both sides, and it seems like Alicent was successful in getting her to turn a little bit against Rhaenyra. Daemon then unsuccessfully tries to assemble the remaining gold cloaks, not all of them are dead, there's still a couple there, to get revenge and find out who these faceless men are that are killing them, but they start to slowly desert because they're starting to go hungry, they haven't been paid, and Rhaenyra has demanded their loyalty, so they're saying that they won't help Daemon disobey her. Alan then meets with Corlys outside of the city, who's hanging all the Triarchy men that they've been able to capture, and tells him about Ormund's recent tactics killing the Gold Cloaks, even though Corlys doesn't want to help Rhaenyra by giving it more of his people, his troops, but says Alan can give her the men himself instead. Like, okay, fine, you can have the men. He also warns Alan and tells him to inform Rhaenyra that Tywin Lannister survived and is at Rook's Rest. I think for the most part, they use this scene because this is like one of the last scenes that they probably have together while Corlys is still alive because of the way they end the episode. They also use this scene for a funny transition to actual Tywin Lannister as he's at Rook's Rest burying the body of the man that Aegon just killed to prevent anyone from Rook's Rest learning what's up because they're still planning to go to Essos in the east, even though Tywin Lannister wants them to still go to Casterly Rock. But remember, he was arguing with Larys Strong about what they should be doing. Like, no, we need to go this way, we need to go that way. And I love how he also kind of confirms Aegon was a terrible king and a bad person without saying as much. He kind of damns him with faint praise, which Aegon also chuckles at like, yep, sounds about right. Back in the Vale, Rhaena spots her sister Baela and her dragon Moondancer looking for Vhagar and Aemond and wants to go meet her because she hasn't seen her in so long. So she's basically just missing her sister and that's why she goes after her. But at least the way she explains it to Lady Jane later, she didn't make it in time. Her sister had already left the town when she arrived after her. But if you were confused why Baela was in this area, she's just been flying around looking for Aemond and Vhagar on Rhaenyra's orders. That's why she's so tired later in the episode. Like, I have to go back out again and look for Vhagar again. And at least the way that Rhaena is explaining it is that she's just missing her family, particularly her sister. So, like, she's just starting to get lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. So she just really want to tease the fact that she's still part of the story. Like, remember, she's still out there, and they're probably going to find out about her eventually. Rhaenyra will probably eventually learn the Sheep Stealer's rider is Rhaena, and she's still very much alive. So this is just one of the ways that the story is just keeping her active in the actual episodes week to week. It's kind of like season 2 when they sent Daemon to Harrenhal just to keep him busy because they needed him to do something for a little while and they weren't ready to have him do bigger stuff. Speaking of which, back at Harrenhal, Aemond has his wits about him again. He's mostly recuperated and wants to leave to find Vhagar, and Alys Rivers does everything she can to try and get him to stay, and it seems like she's almost successful. Really love all of her scenes here, all of her dialogue, just getting super trippy, talking about dynasties, prophecy, old gods, the God's Eye. We'll get into that in a second.
The frog in winter sleeps under the ice.
She starts by saying a frog in winter sleeps under ice, still and silent. It's a metaphor for Aemond continuing to stay at Harrenhal like she wants, gathering his strength. Really, she just wants to use him to get Harrenhal for herself. Like, that's her real goal, just to get Harrenhal. Speaking of laying under ice and biding time for strength, a lot of people have had a theory that Aemond might turn into a White Walker at the end of the series because his fate is left uncertain in the books. Like, you don't really know what happens to the character. He just disappears eventually. Even though I'm not totally sold on that theory yet, like I haven't seen enough evidence to say, oh yeah, they're definitely going to do that on the show, I do think that they're winking at that with her language here, the way she uses the talk of ice and biding for time, because that's basically what the Night King is doing right now. He's waiting under ice, so to speak, metaphorically and kind of literally, until it's time to strike the South. But the other funny meta connection to frogs in Game of Thrones is that there is a Kermit Tully in the books, the Muppet Tullys, there's Oscar Tully, Elmo Tully, and a Kermit Tully. George R. Martin just a real big Muppets fan. She then suggests to Aemond that Vhagar may have flown away to help protect him because everyone is bound to pay more attention to her and not notice that Aemond is not with Vhagar. Like, oh, she's going to distract everyone so that you can just lay in wait here and recuperate. She also reminds him that he's got no chance of facing Rhaenyra if he just charges out right now on Vhagar and her 6 dragons on his own, which she's right. He'd be able to kill a couple of Rhaenyra's dragons, but eventually they would get him. There's no way he'd be able to win that entire fight. Then we go back to the Eyrie with Lady Jane pushing someone down the moon door. We don't see who it is. You can let me know who you thought just got pushed down the moon door. R.I.P. to whoever that guy was. It would have been a crime if they had shown us the moon door in a couple of different episodes and not seen somebody fly down the moon door. She then slaps Rhaena silly for coming back when she said she wouldn't, and she tries to explain how she was trying to see her sister but wasn't able to, and Lady Jane has to remind her of the stakes. Like, if you're discovered, we're both in big trouble with Rhaenyra. She then claims if she ever shows up again, she will throw her down the moon door, but I don't think that there's any way that she'd ever be able to kill Rhaena. Like, that's just an empty threat. But I think the idea is this is meant to push Rhaena in a different direction. Back at the Red Keep, we also see Alan meeting with Baela, who's resting between her trips looking for Vhagar and Aemond. He asks her to try and mend some fences with Corlys because she's his granddaughter and he does have a soft spot for her, like he does for Alan, but they bond over their bad dads because Daemon is also her father. Sometimes you forget because they share so few scenes together, especially this season. It's almost like Daemon forgot that he had children until he saw Rhaena in the Vale. Oh, wait a minute, it's my daughter that I haven't seen in a couple seasons. That's right, I do have a couple daughters out there. They then have the weirdest, most awkward kiss on the show, mostly to try and set up a romance between them for book reasons. We don't need to get too deep into that right now, but they're probably just laying some track work for stuff that happens later in the Dance of the Dragons involving their characters. Back at Tumbleton, Gwaine Hightower arrives at the city and explains everything that's happened to Ormund and Daeron, and Gwaine uses his own reasoning for abandoning Criston Cole, the hopeless fight, for Ormund's current situation. Like, you have no chance, why are we still doing this? Let's all pack it up and go home. Ormund then explains his current plots and schemes, trying to make himself seem very intelligent, like he's really pumping himself up. Also gets really misogynistic against Rhaenyra, claiming that she's deficient because she is a woman. He and Gwaine clearly despise each other, probably have hated each other their whole lives. Daeron does like Gwaine though, and Ormund also insults Gwaine a couple times, claiming that he's gay with a couple of different gay jokes, like don't drop the soap kind of jokes. But I really loved all of Gwaine's scenes with Daeron. Like, Gwaine was probably the MVP of this episode. Daeron complains about Ormund to Gwaine, pissed at Gwaine for leaving him alone with Ormund all these years, and asks for Gwaine's help to deal with him. He wants nothing to do with Ormund's plot to crown him king, so we start to really understand what Daeron is thinking right now. Like, he hates all the stuff that Ormund is doing right now.
I'm second in line. I should return to Old Town and prepare to pick up the pieces.
There are a couple funny moments from Gwaine, too, where he implies that he's the second in line for the lordship of House Hightower, and he needs to go back to Old Town to prepare to pick up the pieces for the house itself when Ormund probably dies in the coming conflict, like he expects Ormund to die promptly. Meaning that Gwaine would immediately become the Lord of House Hightower. And he actually sounds like a very smart person, like were he to become the Lord of the House, he would actually be very good at doing that. Daeron then continues to try and beg him to stay to help him, like, don't leave me alone with Ormund. Do not leave our sweet little boy alone with this monster. Back at the Red Keep, Helaena is listlessly embroidering more pictures of Aemond, and totally normal thing for her to be doing, weaving future events casually, reminding you that she has seen the future. You could draw all kinds of meaning from her picture of Aemond lying in the pool of blood. And the ironic thing is that after watching the teaser for next week's episode, you see Alicent go to Harrenhal, so I think this woman who's above Aemond in the pool of blood is Alicent herself, and Helaena has seen Alicent going to Harrenhal trying to kill Aemond. So even though Alicent is keeping some secrets from Helaena, Helaena has already seen everything long in advance and has known this is going to happen for a while because it took her a long time to weave this, so she saw Alicent going to Harrenhal to try to kill Aemond a long time ago. And right after Alicent sees Aemond in the pool of blood on her tapestry, back at Harrenhal, we see Aemond with Alys Rivers killing a stable boy to keep Aemond secret, and then showing him the dragon eggs to get him to stay. And it seems very convincing, like one way to get Aemond interested is to show him a whole bunch of dragon eggs. She's got a total of 5 eggs. These are old from one of Dreamfire's clutches long ago in the history when she was still ridden by the ancient Princess Rhaenyra, the daughter of Aenys I, who at the end of her life went to Harrenhal to live in basically like a retirement home. That was what Harrenhal was for her retirement home. But she also took Dreamfire to live there at the castle with her, and at the time, Dreamfire laid 5 eggs before Rhaenyra herself passed away. Dreamfire in present day is ridden by Helaena, even though unfortunately the show has never actually shown us any of those scenes. The actress Fia Saban, who plays Helaena, said that she'd love to do more scenes with Dreamfire, but I guess they just don't want to spend the money on special effects for that. HBO, please release all the Dreamfire scenes. We want to see more Dreamfire at some point. One of the other Dreamfire deep cuts from the books, too, is that Daenerys' 3 eggs were reportedly from one of Dreamfire's clutches that were stolen much earlier in the timeline before these 5 eggs that were left at Harrenhal. So if it wasn't clear, these 5 eggs at Harrenhal are meant to be any of Daenerys' eggs, like a completely different clutch of eggs. There was a lot of question about this during Season 2 as well, because there were another group of dragon eggs that Rhaenyra sent out with her 2 sons with Daemon. Like, where are all these dragon eggs going to end up in the future? Where do we see them down the road? The show changes a lot of stuff from the books, but in the books, Daenerys' dragon eggs came from one of Dreamfire's clutches much earlier in the timeline, like way earlier than anything we've seen on the show. Aemond then claims that he's been cursed. Alys Rivers also implies she has been cursed too, like things have been bad for, like her life has not been a good life, and they can have a better life together, like they can build a new dynasty together. She gets like real grand with this speech too. It's a great speech. You kind of wonder if she's winging it here or if she practiced this speech before she came in here. When Aemond can feel the warmth from the dragon egg, dragon riders can often feel warmth when other regular people cannot. It was the same thing with Daenerys, where other people would touch Daenerys' dragon eggs and they just felt cold to them, but when Daenerys touched her dragon eggs, they felt warm to her. I think the idea that it has something to do with the bond between dragon riders and dragons, like people who are capable of dragon bonding can feel the warmth of dragon eggs. She then talks about the ancient power here in this area. She's talking about the old gods because they're right next to the God's Eye, a place full in the power of the old gods. Like, it's a very, very important place in Westeros. She implies they'll start their own new dynasty here. What would happen if Aemond listens to her, you wonder? Like, all the children they have together, their sons will be Targaryen princes themselves. So, like, she's really trying to lay it on thick to get him to stay because she really wants Harrenhal.
There's an ancient strength here.
When she calls herself the Lady of the Water and Hin the Dragon Lord, Dragon Lords are what the ruling class of ancient Valyria were called. The Dragon Lords are the people that literally had dragons, the great houses. But the Lady of the Water feels like both a reference to the waters of the lake around the God's Eye, which is notable for important stuff later on in the story, but also waters as in bastard, because it's what you call bastards from the Crownlands. But here's the thing, she's actually a bastard of House Strong, and she goes by Rivers, Alys Rivers, because they're in the Riverlands. But you really wonder if Aemond is going to take the bait here. What's going to happen here? Will she become pregnant with one of his children? You can let me know in the comments. We're actually getting to points where the books don't really cover stuff like that in detail, so they can actually play with that a little bit on the show, and they wouldn't be changing the books that much. Rhaenyra then listens to more petitioners on the Iron Throne. There's more and more problems around the city. There's not enough supplies, not enough tallow for candles. The gold cloaks being gone means nobody's protecting the sept, meaning the septas are being taken by thugs, which she seems kind of sympathetic, but also not that sympathetic to. Like, we'll pray for her when I visit the sept next time, and that's it. So she starts to lose patience with them because she just can't deal with all these minor problems. She's more focused on the Greens and with Aemond, and she cuts herself on the Iron Throne and starts to spiral a little bit, looking at her father's statue in the throne room. And the reason why she flips a little when she sees the cut is because it's an ill portent. It's like Viserys in episode 1 of season 1 cutting himself on the Iron Throne right after he banishes Daemon. And a lot of people believe that it's after that he started to succumb to his wasting disease that like slowly killed him over time. So part of the idea is that Rhaenyra is seeing that and taking it as an ill portent, like, oh, this is not good. Daemon then tries to uncover Ormund's man, maybe Perkin the Flea, maybe a Faceless man, by disguising himself as a gold cloak, trapping him when he comes to kill him. But when he says we have no number, like I said, this is all references to the Faceless men. Like, we have no banner, we have nobody that you can actually sway. If you kill one of us, it won't do anything. Like, it's not going to change anything. But here's the thing, when he starts supporting the Greens and Daeron the Daring, the Faceless men would not do that. They have no allegiance to like any other lords around the realm. They only follow the Faceless god. So it kind of throws some water on the idea that he might be a Faceless man, and they might just be using that as a sort of wink at the title, like, oh, just a slight reference, but not actually a whole bunch of Faceless men. But the whole idea is that Daemon is just meant to realize that there's this growing movement that will never accept Rhaenyra, and there's nothing they can do to stop it, and it's just bad news all around. Like, this is just bad, bad, bad. Speaking of people around the realm liking Rhaenyra less and less and less and not doing what she says, they jump straight to Ulf White, who he bumps into after sneaking out of the castle to go to market and just hang out, and Daemon striking again, insulting him, which just causes him to start hating him and Rhaenyra even more, causing their relationship to deteriorate more and more and more. Like, you don't want a situation where the Dragonseeds hate the people they're supposed to be serving, because dragons are nuclear weapons. Speaking of which, Dragonseeds not doing what they're supposed to, Hugh Hammer kills a local trader so that he can sneak into the city to see his wife just as the Baratheon assassins are arriving. And I love the way that Ormund intercuts with his conversation, cautioning and never trusting a commoner who gains power, because that's exactly what Ulf White and Hugh Hammer are doing, not obeying orders. They were commoners who then came to power. So the show really wants you to not trust the Dragonseeds anymore at this point. Be worried about what they do next. When Ormund talks to Daeron about choosing his hand of the king, Ormund wants to be the hand. He's trying to butter Daeron up to pick him as hand. And Gwaine becomes the MVP of the episode when he instantly clocks that the Baratheon assassins are fakes and they start killing them. We also get a couple funny moments from Ormund too, who proves that his bark is far worse than his bite, when he himself gets really squeamish over the blood and pukes everywhere. He was literally just making fun of Rhaenyra for being squeamish because she was quote-unquote a woman. What does that make Ormund Hightower? So Gwaine basically saves them all. Hugh Hammer then meets with his wife, and she explains that she came to Tumbleton in the first place because she thought that he had died during the Red Sowing, and for whatever crazy reason, nobody had told her that he was still alive after the Red Sowing. You'd think that somebody would have sent a raven, like, oh, by the way, your husband is a dragon rider now. And it kind of sounds like she is ready to pack it up and leave this life, like she has had enough of everything, and she says the thing, she goes full Jon Snow, she does not want it.
I told you I don't want it.
It doesn't matter what you want.
She then crashes out and the guards notice them. Definitely not good. He is not over this. His situation will only get worse. He's going to continue to spiral over his worries about her over the rest of the episodes. So they really want you to be on edge with what the Dragonseeds are going to be doing the next couple of episodes. Really worried about what they might be up to. Kinda seems like Gwaine Hightower is the only person in the episode actually making good decisions. While this is happening, Daeron is training in the yard while Ormund apologizes to Gwaine and allows him to leave to go back to Old Town, but says that he'll stay now to protect Daeron, mostly worried about what Ormund is going to do to Daeron. That's why he's staying. Alicent then meets with Rhaenyra again, asking for help with Helaena in exchange for helping find Aemond, and reveals that he's been at Harrenhal this whole time because Alicent told him to go to Harrenhal, so she's known he's been at Harrenhal this whole time. And we get a couple cool mentions of the lore from Rhaenyra when Alicent reveals that Helaena is a dragon dreamer to Rhaenyra, which apparently she didn't know before this. Rhaenyra did not know that Helaena had dragon dreams, but because Viserys, her father, taught her all about dragon dreams, and she knows the histories of the Targaryen family and the Valyrians, she understands dragon dreams in a way that Alicent did not. She then likens Helaena to Daenerys the Dreamer, referencing her dragon dream of the doom of Valyria, and just it seems like she's much more interested in Helaena now, like she's going to park it up right next to her with a bunch of parchment and a couple of quills and a couple pots of ink. Just have everybody write down everything that Helaena speaks. Doesn't matter how silly it sounds, write down everything that comes out of her mouth from now on. This is one of the jokes that we told in previous seasons because most of the Greens didn't really understand the lore of their own family, so almost nobody realized that Helaena was a dragon dreamer and just spouting out the future. Like if we'd have listened to what she was saying, we might actually be doing better now. We are in a show where at least two different characters are telling people the future, but nobody is listening to them. But the bigger idea here too is that Alicent makes the bargain to kill Aemond herself in exchange for help with Helaena, so we'll see how that goes down because I do not think that she's going to be able to kill Aemond. Right before she goes, though, we get a great scene with Helaena where she gets real with her, like very few scenes of them just being mother-daughter together. Usually it's Helaena spouting off the future, but every once in a while you get like a cool scene of them just being a family. And Helaena asking her why she married her to Aegon, her brother, instead of some other lord like you normally would. And Alicent tells her that it was her grandfather, Otto Hightower, who told Alicent that they were marrying them together, even though she admits it was her fault for not trying to stop it. When you go back and you watch those early episodes of Season 1 before the time jump, you can see Alicent absolutely hates the idea of Targaryen twincest, so she probably really hated Helaena marrying Aegon, but at that point, she was just doing whatever her father told her, so if Otto wanted something done, it would be done, and now she regrets that. Alicent also says that she wanted to keep Helaena closer to her because she was worried about what would happen to her if she married some other lord far away, but I think the real answer is that Alicent wanted somebody close to her for her because Alicent wanted somebody that she could count on, and she just felt like nobody around her was actually listening to her, so she felt very alone and wanted somebody with her, and that wound up being Helaena. So the real reason why she probably allowed Helaena to get married to Aegon was because she wanted Helaena to be there for her, not for Helaena. And the way they end this conversation, Helaena just does not look good at all. Like, things are not looking good for her. Everybody say your prayers for Helaena. Rhaenyra then briefly visits Joffrey's bedside while he's asleep, just to remind you that Joffrey is still around at the Red Keep, while Alicent leaves for Harrenhal. We'll see how that goes next week. And Ormund sends the Baratheon's cloaks back to Rhaenyra with a taunt, like, ha ha ha, you tried, but you failed. Just as it seems like Corlys Velaryon is killed by Jon Roxton and his men, the Greens, after he sends his men back to King's Landing. So you can let me know, do you think that they're killing Corlys here? I had to zoom in and enhance a couple times, but it's one of those scenes that you can barely make out unless you're watching on a very bright screen, and it did seem like they were stabbing the hell out of Corlys. So maybe we say RIP to him, press F to pay respects.
Who are you?
If that is what happened, that is a big book change. Corlys's book plot is very different. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and let me know if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video. My episode 7 trailer video will be next, and my full episode 7 video will post next week after they release the episode, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other House of the Dragon episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.